The time has finally come. GPU prices have fallen so much that you can now pick what GPU you want for your next gaming PC, rather than having to buy whatever comes in stock at a reasonable price. But with so many options on the market, with new cards from Nvidia, and more recently brand new GPUs from AMD, should you go Team Green or Team Red? Should you wait for Intel's next offering? And which cards are the best for those looking to build budget, mid-range, and high-end systems? In this video, I'll be recommending the best cards, talking about which ones to avoid, and also looking at performance as we go through, showing what kind of frame rates and visual fidelity you can achieve with some of the most popular cards on the market. Let's do this. Let's start off with the best budget cards first and work through to mid-range and high-end options as we go through. Now, on the very bottom end of the GPU market, you've got cards like the RTX 3050 from Nvidia and RX 6500 XT from AMD. Looking at these cards side by side from specs alone, it's clear which is the obvious winner. AMD's budget option is a GPU you should frankly avoid, while Nvidia's 3050 is the best graphics card under $300 for those looking to game at 1080p. Looking at the performance of the 3050, we've been so impressed. You can play all the latest titles at high frame rates, high settings. 60 FPS and above at 1080p is possible in essentially every game out there. Plus, with support for both ray tracing, less important, and DLSS, much more important, this Nvidia card really brings strong performance to the table. As if that wasn't enough, these cards are not only now in stock at a wide range of retailers, but actually available in cheaper cooler options. You haven't got to go out and buy the bulky, expensive 3-cooler designs, because actually the 2 fan options like the MSI Ventus and this Asus dual card, a GPU we love by the way, are becoming available at great price points. I'll link all the options down in the description below though that we talk about today. Looking at these budget cards, one thing it does teach us is that VRAM is really important. AMD's 6500 XT isn't really that bad of a card. It's just not got nearly enough video memory to actually be useful. With 8GB on the 3050, you've got plenty for 1080p gaming, and you're going to be pleased with the settings you're able to achieve. The last thing you want is for your VRAM on your GPU to be maxed out, but the card itself to actually only be at 60 or 70%. That's leaving 3 important performance on the table that you most certainly don't want to miss out on. But what if you've got some more money to spend than a 3050? Should you look at a 3060? 6600 XT, or this, AMD's brand new 6650 XT. Now, very recently, AMD released a range of 50 cards. Sort of similar to Nvidia's Ti or Super ranges from yesteryear, they look to increase the performance of the regular 6600 XT, the regular 6700 XT, and regular 6900 XT, hoping to preemptively stave off some of the new cards that Nvidia has likely got landing in the market around August, September, or October time, crucially normally in time for Christmas. Now, when we looked at the 6650 XT in our full review, we were impressed by how it actually provided a solid performance bump over the 3060, slotting in the middle of Nvidia's 3060 lineup. But unfortunately, it's a card we find difficult to recommend if it's not at RTX 3060 pricing. This card here from AMD has had a sneaky price increase and now sits more aligned with the RTX 3060 Ti than it does the 3060. The 3060 Ti then is our second sort of budget to mid-range choice. Nvidia's 3060 option is also great, and the AMD 6600 XT is not a bad bet while you can still pick them up, though they are sadly being discontinued. The 3060 Ti has considerably more poke than the 3060, but the 3060 is still a solid upgrade on the 3050 if you can't quite afford or stomach the prices of the 3060 Ti. The 6650 XT is a good shout if prices fall, but personally I would never pay more for this card than a 3060 Ti. That is a bad decision and one you are likely to regret. Now, as we head up the GPU lineup, AMD got a little bit luckier with the 6750 XT, a card which provides a solid bump over the old 6700 XT and helps it to compete better with Nvidia's 3070. The 3070 Ti is still my preferable choice for mid-range to high-end systems. Nvidia's DLSS tech is just more mature, you get plenty of video memory, and I think stock and availability on the whole has been better with these Nvidia cards. It has felt a little bit recently like AMD are just a generation behind Nvidia, and while they definitely have cards that can compete, price is still the motivating factor for me when looking at an AMD GPU. If there's price parity with a similar performing Nvidia card, I would prefer that given the extra bells and whistles that you achieve when you go Team Green. Of course, choosing the GPU is just the first step, and you'll want to make sure you pick up a solid processor for your graphics card as well. We've talked about this in more detail, but briefly on our screen now, I'll pop a handy guide. A Ryzen 3 and i3 is going to be good for a 3050, but above that, you'll want a Ryzen 5 or i5. Then on the top end, you want an i7 or an i9 if you're going for the most expensive cards, to make sure you're maximizing performance and avoiding bottlenecks. Now, on the very, very high end of the spectrum, things have got a bit more complicated recently. Nvidia's latest 3090 Ti is an incredible GPU and the fastest card on the market, but it's a card that's so expensive and so enthusiast, I wouldn't even class it as a normal gaming GPU anymore. It's sort of in a category of its own for those who have got, frankly, more money than they've got sense. Instead, AMD's new 6950 XT looks to be a great option for those wanting the best of the best without spending every penny to their name. Of course, the high-end segment has got really fragmented recently. There's a huge difference in price between the 3080 and 3090 Ti, with some of AMD's cards slotting in between. Check out this MSRP price data for all of these high-end cards. There's around about $1,000 or more difference between the price of the cheapest and high-end unit. Perhaps we need another category: budget, mid-range, high-end, and absolutely ridiculous. Now, as I say though, on the high-end, the 6950 XT is worth a shout, but don't discard Nvidia's 3080, the non-Ti variant. For me, the Ti just doesn't deliver all that much by way of performance to warrant the fairly hefty price bump over its non-Ti counterpart, and a 3080 is still going to be a great choice for those looking to game at 4K, 60 frames per second, high settings. Who'd have thought a couple of years ago we'd be looking at cards that can now smash through games at 4K without any problems? Now, all of these GPU recommendations are well and good, but to be honest with you, it actually depends what games you're playing. If you're a big fan of Fortnite, AMD tend to perform actually pretty well here, and tend to outpace some of their Nvidia counterparts for a reason frankly, I don't really understand. It's also, of course, worth considering AMD's support for Smart Access Memory. This is a feature that allows you to tap into the memory on an AMD GPU if you also have an AMD CPU. And that makes those of you currently rocking a Ryzen build perhaps more favoured to go for a Team Red card than it does Team Green. You'll also find that AMD cards often, apart from the 6500 XT where AMD just lost their marbles, have more video memory on the whole. Take a look at some of these high-end cards and the VRAM differences. It's pretty staggering. And what that means is for those looking to do professional applications, high-end video editing or rendering where lots of VRAM is crucial, or play a game like Cities Skylines where you've got so many things going on your GPU wants to explode, suddenly AMD looks even more compelling. But things get even more complicated, with Intel officially confirming their entry to the GPU market at some point this year. The first rumours I heard from industry sources were May last year. It's now May this year, so the cards are definitely running quite late, and it doesn't fill me with loads of hope for their release. But perhaps more promisingly is, of course, the rumoured release of new Nvidia cards in September, October time. Now, to be clear, I've got no idea when these cards are going to come out, and I'm just using a best guess, looking at their release dates from previous generations. Now, with this in mind, I wouldn't necessarily recommend waiting out for a new GPU, especially if you're looking for a more budget-oriented card, which will always come last in a new stack of graphics cards. If you're shopping for a 3080 Ti though, or a 3080, the waters are a little bit more muddy, as this is likely the first card Nvidia will replace when they release their new lineup. To summarise, there's lots of great options out there, but if I had to give you my best three, I would say the RTX 3050 on the low end, the RTX 3060 Ti in the mid-range battle, and an RTX 3080 for 4K gaming. If you've got more money than sense, the AMD 6950 XT is a great shout, and while the 3090 Ti performs very well, we've got no complaints. It's a card for those of you who really need it as opposed to want it, in my opinion. It's not a good value option if all you're looking to do is game. And with that, that pretty much wraps it up for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to drop a like rating, get subscribed. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.